Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, Parallel Deku. Back with another fanfiction. This is the movie of What If Deku Confessed Before It Was Too Late? Now before starting, please give this video a like. And subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. The students were once again being lectured by Aizawa, who expressed his disappointment in their irresponsibility. His tone was emotionless as he warned them that he could impose more punishment but chose to let them off with just a warning. After a moment of silence, Aizawa seemed to lose focus, staring off into space. Deku took the opportunity to approach Uraraka, who was engaged in conversation with someone else. When she turned to him, she greeted him happily. Deku observed that Aizawa was acting unusually worried, which was out of character for him. As he muttered his thoughts aloud, Uraraka placed a hand on his shoulder, causing him to blush and stop speaking. She blushed in response, and the moment was awkward yet sweet. Aizawa then glanced at the clock in the ground, where a portal suddenly opened. Before Deku could react, he fell into the portal, with Uraraka following closely behind, and everything went black. When they regained consciousness, the students, heroes, and villains alike began to stir. Confusion spread among them as they questioned their surroundings. A mysterious woman stood on a stage, addressing the group. She assured them that she wanted everyone to be comfortable and instructed them to sit down, warning that she would use her quirk if they did not comply. Fear rippled through the crowd at her words. Deku noted the woman's presence and wondered about her quirk. She appeared ordinary, yet he could not shake the feeling of unease. He took a seat next to Uraraka and pondered why they had been brought there. Suddenly, the woman teleported in front of him, revealing her quirk. She explained that they were there to watch different worlds that involved them, specifically mentioning Deku by name and his original quirk of analyzing. The revelation shocked both the teachers and students, especially Bakugo, who expressed disbelief that Deku had ever been quirkless. The woman introduced herself as Amelia, inviting them to call her by that name or simply, the author. As she spoke, Momo complimented her sweater, which Amelia appreciated. Amelia announced that they would begin with the first story, but she kept its content a secret. The lights dimmed, and the scene opened with Deku walking down a road, lost in thought. Words of doubt and negativity echoed in his mind, reminding him of the harsh things people had said to him. The atmosphere turned somber as some in the audience reacted with concern. Uraraka turned to Deku, realizing the pain he had endured, and offered him a comforting hug. Deku wrestled with dark thoughts, contemplating whether he would ever be worthy of a quirk. He felt like a quirkless nobody, unworthy of anything but despair. The audience's anger turned towards Bakugo and All Might, questioning what had been said to push Deku to such thoughts. All Might, filled with shame, struggled to respond. A flashback revealed Bakugo's cruel actions, including the destruction of Deku's notebook, which had sparked a confrontation between them. In the midst of this turmoil, a mysterious man with scars approached Deku, asking if he was lost. Despite his intimidating appearance, Deku felt drawn to talk to someone about his struggles. The man invited him to a more private place, and with nowhere else to go, Deku agreed. Uraraka, sensing the danger, protested against Deku going with the man, who seemed unfazed by her concern. The audience learned that in this alternate universe, Deku's mother was not dead, but his father was abusive, having caused her demise with his quirk. Shocked gasps filled the room as the truth unfolded. Deku followed the man through the city until they reached a bar-like establishment. Inside, another man awaited them, and the atmosphere grew tense. Deku recognized the man as a notorious villain, Shigaraki, who was known for his destructive powers. The realization hit him hard, and he understood the gravity of the situation he had walked into. The atmosphere in the room shifted as a young man revealed his extensive knowledge of both heroes and villains. He claimed to have documented their strengths and weaknesses in a notebook, which he displayed on his phone, showcasing photos of various books. He mentioned having methods to end his own life, but reassured everyone that he had no intention of following through with such thoughts. Concerned, Aizawa approached him, asking if the claims were true. The young man confirmed the existence of the notebook but insisted he would not harm himself, though he quietly admitted to a friend that he had contemplated it. Aizawa then spoke with Nizu in hushed tones, and it seemed therapy was part of their discussion. When asked why he would consider such drastic measures, he opened up about his painful experiences. He revealed that his father had hurt him, a friend had burned him, and someone he admired had let him down. He removed his shirt, exposing scars and bruises on his arms, along with handprints and burns on his back. He expressed feelings of worthlessness, stating he was quirkless and did not deserve to live. Dobi, another character present, empathized with him, sharing his own experiences of parental abuse. The room was filled with a mix of emotions as everyone absorbed the gravity of the situation. Some were visibly upset, while others focused on the young man, who sat crying in his seat. Todoroki commented on the intensity of the moment, and Bakugu, tears streaming down his face, grappled with the impact of his own words and actions. He recognized that he played a significant role in the young man's suffering, alongside the influence of his father and All Might. Dobi acknowledged the hardships the young man had faced and asked for his name. The young man, still tearful, introduced himself as Izuku Midoriya. Dobi then extended an invitation to join their group, holding out 3 fingers in a gesture of acceptance. After a moment of hesitation, Izuku took Dobi's hand, marking his transition into a new role as a villain. The screen then faded to black. As the lights came back on, many in the audience commented on the intensity of the previous scene. They watched as Uraraka comforted the distraught Izuku, trying to calm him down. Amelia, sensing the emotional weight of the moment, decided it was time to conclude the session and exited the stage. Aizawa, concerned for Bakugu, pulled him aside using his scarf, leading him to a quieter room. The tension was palpable as everyone watched, unsure of what would happen next. Once inside, Aizawa confronted Bakugu about his treatment of Midoriya, expressing his anger and concern. Bakugu admitted to calling Izuku a quirkless loser and acknowledged the burns on his back, realizing he had crossed a line. Aizawa's disappointment was evident as he reprimanded Bakugu, who feared the consequences of his actions, especially the potential wrath of his mother. Despite the gravity of the situation, Bakugu remained stoic, knowing he had hurt Izuku deeply. Aizawa decided against informing Bakugu's mother but made it clear that there would be consequences for his actions. As they left the room, Bakugu felt the weight of the stares from his peers, slumping in his seat, hiding his face as he awaited the next segment of the program. The excitement in the room had diminished after the intense revelations. All Might and Bakugu received disapproving glances from the audience as they settled down for the next viewing. Amelia greeted the crowd, introducing a new story where Izuku grew up with less bullying and discovered his quirk at a young age. The lights dimmed and the screen illuminated. The scene opened with young Bakugu and Izuku playing together in a park, showcasing their innocent friendship. The audience watched as the 2 boys interacted, with Bakugu confidently assuring Izuku that he would soon develop a quirk of his own. The girls in the crowd found their friendship adorable, and Izuku blushed at the attention. The narrative unfolded, revealing their close bond from preschool, where they supported each other and grew together. As the story progressed, Izuku began to experience strange occurrences with objects floating around him, a sign of his developing quirk. His mother, who shared a similar but weaker power, trained him to harness his abilities. In middle school, they became a formidable duo, protecting each other and earning respect from their peers. The audience reacted with disbelief as Bakugu, who had previously bullied Izuku, now stood by his side, helping him during critical moments. Their friendship blossomed, and Izuku found the courage to approach Uraraka, leaving a lasting impression on her. As the story continued, it became clear that this alternate reality offered a glimpse of hope and friendship, contrasting sharply with the earlier narrative. The audience was captivated, and as they watched the screen, they felt a renewed sense of optimism for Izuku's journey. Kirishima imagined Bakugo in a different light, sparking a conversation among friends. Uraraka felt her cheeks flush as Izuku approached her with a proposal to hang out. To her surprise, she agreed, and their relationship blossomed into something more meaningful. They were soon seen holding hands, marking the beginning of their journey together. In another part of the world, Shigaraki expressed his annoyance at the ongoing battles, questioning their relevance to the storyline. Amelia, the orchestrator of their adventures, reassured him that while conflicts existed, they were not the focus of their narrative. She emphasized that they were not mere sidekicks or single heroes. They were a cohesive team, working in harmony. The scene shifted to Bakugo creating an explosion in his hand, which Izuku then propelled into the distance, eliciting cheers from onlookers who marveled at their display of power. The excitement in the air was palpable as everyone celebrated their achievements, declaring their ambition to be the first team to graduate together and to become the greatest heroes the world had ever seen. As the scene faded to black, Izuku's declaration resonated with the crowd, leaving them in awe. Amelia, with a snap of her fingers, teleported everyone back, hinting at more adventures to come. The theater welcomed the audience back, and Amelia prepared to dive into the next tale. Deku was on his way to school, the building still a half-mile away. He contemplated using his quirk to shorten the distance, but the thought of getting in trouble held him back. Unbeknownst to him, 5 individuals were lurking nearby, watching his every move. They stealthily approached and captured him, using their quirk to teleport him to a secret location. Uraraka's voice echoed with concern as she called out for Deku, while others speculated about the nature of his absence. Aizawa, noticing Izuku's empty seat, felt a sense of unease. He acknowledged that it was unusual for Deku to be late and decided to take action, planning to call for help if he didn't show up soon. Meanwhile, Deku found himself tied to a chair in an unfamiliar room, confused and unable to use his quirk due to the cuffs restraining him. The captors introduced themselves as the Cuff Squad, revealing their intention to lure All Might to their location. Despite their claims, Deku insisted that All Might was not his father, even as they pressed him for information about his true parentage. Back at school, the search for Deku intensified. All Might expressed his concern, noting that it was strange for Izuku to be missing. As they spread out to search the city, the tension grew among his friends, who were worried about his safety. In the captors' hideout, Deku questioned their motives, noting their reluctance to harm him. One of the villains admitted that they had no clear reason for their actions and feared the consequences of All Might's wrath. The atmosphere shifted as they considered releasing him, realizing the gravity of their situation. All Might received a mysterious phone call, where the captors revealed they had Izuku and were willing to return him. The urgency in All Might's voice was evident as he demanded to know where his student was being held. Determined to rescue Deku, he prepared to confront the situation head-on. As the story concluded, All Might reflected on the events, while Amelia encouraged the audience to return for another tale. The excitement lingered, leaving everyone eager for what was to come next. Amelia invited suggestions for future stories, fostering a sense of community and creativity among her audience. Amelia welcomed everyone back, expressing her excitement for the day's story. Izuku woke up abruptly, drenched in cold sweat from a recurring nightmare in which his father harmed his mother. A voice from the doorway inquired about his well-being, revealing Shigaraki standing there. Izuku admitted to having the nightmare again, prompting Shigaraki to tell him to get up because breakfast was ready. The group discussed the implications of Izuku being raised by villains, with Uraraka expressing her horror at the thought. Shigaraki defended their upbringing, recalling his own childhood under All for One, claiming he had everything he wanted and that he was a good father figure. Amelia intervened to steer the conversation back on track. A year had passed since Izuku arrived at this place, having been invited by Dabi. Now old enough to attend UA, it had always been his dream school. Uraraka noticed the past tense in his words, prompting a hush from the others. Izuku resolved not to become a hero, intending to use his telekinesis quirk to set society right again, which he believed was in disarray. As he entered the kitchen, he greeted everyone and received a warm morning response. He wore a dark green shirt with a belt designed for knives and black ripped jeans, his hair also dyed black. The class erupted in surprise at his new look. When he inquired about breakfast, Kurojiiri informed him they were having French toast. Shigaraki announced that their emissary was on the television, where a low, raspy voice greeted everyone. The announcement revealed that UA High School would open the next day, and Izuku was to attend and gather information on the heroes. A small portal opened, delivering a name tag, backpack, and schedule, along with an outfit for school. Izuku was instructed to use his quirk and document everything about the students while maintaining his original name. Frustrated, he stormed off to his room, expressing his disdain for the school and heroes. Someone remarked on Izuku's hatred for heroes being unusual. He reflected on his old notebooks, which contained the weaknesses of every hero in Japan, except for one. He recalled that his emcir had mentioned a hero who had injured All Might but was uncertain about the details. He noted Eraserhead, his new homeroom teacher, and recognized that his quirk could only nullify one of Izuku's 4 abilities at a time. His original quirk was analysis, followed by telekinesis, IQ, and strength, the latter being new and risky due to the potential for injury. The next day, Izuku dressed in the school uniform, which he found quite nice. He boarded a bus and arrived at UA after a brief journey. Adapting his personality to resemble his former self, he greeted some classmates with waves and smiles until he tripped. A girl caught him, causing him to blush as he had never interacted with unfamiliar girls before. He brushed off the encounter and continued on. After the entrance exam, Izuku felt pleased with his score of 73 points, especially after saving the girl who had helped him earlier from being crushed by a robot. His confidence grew as he reviewed the results, discovering he had placed first overall, but was surprised to see Bakugo in second. They would now be classmates, and while he knew he had to accept this reality, he still struggled with his deep-seated resentment toward Bakugo. As the story concluded, someone commented on the unexpected ending, questioning why Izuku harbored such strong feelings against Bakugo. Izuku defended his friend, acknowledging Bakugo's harshness but asserting their friendship. Amelia decided it was time to wrap things up and prepared to send everyone back. The scene shifted to a new segment where Amelia introduced a song, thanking a viewer for the suggestion. The setting was an underground building adorned with ice shards, and the music began. Shoto appeared, visibly angry, wielding an ice sword. The visuals depicted his internal struggle as he grappled with his emotions, reflecting on the dangers of choosing a path filled with hatred. As the song progressed, Shoto's conflict deepened, and he faced the consequences of his choices. Despite Izuku's attempts to reach out to him, Shoto remained distant, illustrating the pain of their situation. The narrative captured the essence of their struggles, showcasing the challenges they faced in their journey toward understanding and redemption. He kept stepping higher until he reached a platform. The path he was on was dark, paved in black. He was determined to take that road without looking back. Each twist and turn led him straight to where he yearned to go. Pikachu Boy admired the designs, commenting on how cool they looked with the ice. It was true that the path was dark, but he could see where it ended. His rivals would fall as his power ascended. If they despised him, that was fine. He was taking what was rightfully his. Unlike them, they had lost their nerve in the game. He was not lost. This fate was his to choose. Aizawa observed the situation, wondering if he was turning into a villain. The boy had chosen to shed his doubts and chains, losing each weakness that remained. Now, he had nothing left to lose. In contrast, others had so much to hold on to. He only wanted his rightful dues. He noted that they had lost their grip in their minds, but he was determined not to lose. All was not lost. They should not be so blind. He urged them to cut their losses and drop their IOUs. Someone remarked on how serious he seemed, while Endeavor questioned himself quietly, wondering if it was his fault. He felt no tears and lost no sleep over his choices. What he wanted, he would take and keep. No one could stop the turning of the screws. In a vision, Shoto was seen locking Deku in a cage with quirk-canceling cuffs, declaring that he would remain there until everything was resolved. Just in case Deku thought of escaping, Shoto lifted the cage to the top of an ice mountain. Now, he had nothing left to lose. After a performance, everyone agreed that it was good singing. Amelia expressed her happiness that they enjoyed it and said goodbye with a snap of her fingers. She welcomed everyone back, her familiar voice resonating through the crowd. They were about to react to popular memes, starting with the first one. Uraraka noted that most of them were scared of a certain individual, questioning why others weren't. The response was filled with playful banter, as Amelia quickly moved on to the next meme. Izuku recalled a time when Mirio had beaten them all, and Amelia prompted them to continue. Aizawa expressed his confusion about a particular meme, while Amelia shrugged and moved on. Denki complained about having control over his quirk, and Aoyama claimed that he was the only one who sparkled. Shoto was uncertain, and Amelia urged them to proceed before he could rethink his existence. Todoroki remarked that reacting to memes was his favorite activity, and Amelia decided to skip further reactions, sharing just some memes she had found instead. Amelia welcomed everyone back with enthusiasm, announcing that they would be diving into an intriguing story. The scene shifted to the UA dorms, specifically to Class 1A's quarters. Inside one room, Izuku Midoriya awoke suddenly, confused about his surroundings. He called out for himself, bewildered, and rushed to the door. Before exiting, he caught a glimpse of himself in the mirror, but his thoughts were interrupted by another loud shout. Uraraka commented on the surprising start, while Amelia expressed her excitement for the unfolding events. Izuku opened the door and stepped into the hallway, where several classmates were gathered, equally confused and questioning what had happened. He demanded to know what was going on, raising his voice in frustration. The others exchanged surprised glances, noting that Izuku had never spoken that way before. The group began to walk toward the main common room, where Momo speculated about their quirks, wondering if they had swapped bodies. Ida confirmed the theory, leading to a series of introductions as each student identified themselves in their new forms. The confusion escalated when Mineta, in his own body, expressed disbelief at his situation, leaving everyone shocked. As they pondered who might not be swapped, Shoto, now in Izuku's body, suddenly realized something important. Just as he was about to reveal his thoughts, the screen abruptly went black, leaving everyone in suspense. Amelia announced that the story would continue later, eliciting groans of disappointment from the audience. In the next segment, Amelia introduced a new song, capturing the attention of her classmates. Mina expressed her excitement about the song, while the scene transitioned to Izuku on stage, holding a microphone and dressed in a striking black dress. The dark music began, and the lyrics unfolded, creating an atmosphere of intrigue. As the song played, Bakugo's reaction was cut short, and Kirishima teased him about his sudden silence. Amelia encouraged everyone to focus on the performance. The lyrics spoke of secrets and darkness, prompting Jairu to question the meaning behind the song. Amelia admitted uncertainty about its message. The performance continued, with the lyrics emphasizing themes of mystery and allure. Uraraka was surprised by Izuku's singing ability, while Momo challenged him to prove his talent after the song. Izuku reluctantly agreed, feeling the pressure of their expectations. As the song concluded, reactions varied among the classmates. Some found it captivating, while others deemed it too intense. Aizawa, overhearing the conversation, expressed concern about the song's appropriateness for the students, hinting at his protective instincts. The screen then cut off, leaving the audience with mixed feelings about the performance. Amelia wrapped up the segment, thanking everyone for their participation and promising more exciting content in the future. The narrative shifted again, with Amelia announcing the continuation of the villain Deku series. The story followed Izuku as he faced a challenging morning, grappling with his emotions about attending school. His classmates speculated about his mood, recalling his reluctance to return. As Izuku entered his classroom, he approached a girl with brown hair, greeting her and initiating a new chapter in his journey. The scene set the stage for further developments, leaving the audience eager for what was to come next. Uraraka introduced herself with a bubbly demeanor, expressing her excitement about the school. Despite her cheerful attitude, Midoriya felt a mix of apprehension and determination. He extended his hand for a handshake, introducing himself and suggesting they could be friends, though he felt uncertain about his own confidence. Uraraka's expression shifted to one of hurt as she reflected on Midoriya's past, while Amelia, another student, reassured her that they were in a different universe where things had not unfolded the same way. Just then their teacher, the pro-hero known as Eraserhead, entered the classroom in his usual unorthodox manner. He instructed the students to put on their gear and head outside, prompting everyone to hurry and follow his orders. Once outside, the students lined up to participate in a series of races. Midoriya chose to compete without using his quirk, achieving average scores. The next challenge involved throwing a ball, which sparked a memory for him. He recalled a moment when his friend had injured himself during a similar event, and he could hear the whispers of his classmates referring to him as Deku, a nickname that carried both affection and teasing. As Midoriya approached the throwing stand, he prepared to use his quirk but was distracted by a commotion. He noticed Bakugo, his rival, being restrained by Eraserhead's cape. Bakugo's frustration was palpable as he questioned Midoriya about the existence of his quirk. Midoriya, maintaining his composure, confidently stated that he was skilled at keeping secrets and hinted that he could hold his own in a fight. Bakugo, filled with a mix of anger and confusion, threw the ball with impressive force, achieving a score that matched Uraraka's. The crowd erupted in excitement, amazed by Bakugo's performance. They marveled at the incredible feat he had just accomplished, acknowledging the intensity of the moment. As the excitement settled, Amelia expressed her hope that everyone enjoyed the experience, leaving the students buzzing with anticipation for what was to come next. Amelia announced the return of the group, excitedly introducing the next segment of their viewing experience. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation, especially after Midoriya's startling suggestion about a missing person. Everyone was aware that she was absent, and they began searching the premises, only to find her room empty. Deku, feeling a sense of certainty, voiced his thoughts about the situation. The group continued their search outside, where they stumbled upon a peculiar sight, a floating pair of clothes. It was then that Deku confirmed his suspicion. Hagakure was the one they were looking for. As she appeared before them, she greeted her friends, indicating that they had been expected. Suddenly, someone emerged from the bushes, and a portal opened beneath their feet. Hagakure questioned whether she was being accused of betrayal, to which Amelia clarified that it was simply a matter of their current reality. Class 1A found themselves falling through the portal, landing in a dimly lit room filled with neatly arranged chairs. An authoritative voice commanded them to sit, and, against their will, they complied. A man entered the room, and confusion spread among the students as they tried to identify him. The man introduced himself as a representative of a secret organization, explaining that they were there to observe how the students would react to being given new quirks. The students were bewildered by the revelation that they were being tested. The man then asked if there was anyone who had not been swapped, prompting Mineta to raise his hand. Deku, filled with concern, wondered what would happen to Mineta. Amelia urged everyone to wait and see. Mineta approached the front, and the man inquired about his quirk. Mineta explained his ability to produce sticky ball from his head and demonstrated it. The man dismissed the quirk as seemingly useless, and suddenly, Mineta collapsed to the ground, leaving the audience in shock as his quirk vanished, revealing his sagging hair. The students were horrified, questioning what had just happened. The man, with a smirk, reassured them that it was nothing significant. Another man entered and picked up Mineta, taking him away. The first man ominously stated that they might never see him again, but if they cooperated, there was a chance he would be safe. The screen abruptly shut off, leaving the students frozen in disbelief at the extent of the power they had just witnessed. Amelia concluded the session, reminding everyone that they could continue their discussions back in their own dimension. With a snap of her fingers, she sent them back to their previous location. The students and their teachers found themselves returned to the spot they had occupied just hours earlier, having just watched Izuku perform a song that captivated everyone with its angelic quality. Uraraka, eager to hear more, asked if Izuku would sing for them again. He felt a blush creep onto his face as he hesitated but ultimately agreed. Momo crafted a makeshift microphone for him. As Izuku stood before the group, the music began, and the class watched in awe. A few students rose to their feet, applauding, and soon the entire class joined in a standing ovation. Jiro exclaimed how amazing Midoriya's performance was, and many nodded in agreement. Just then, a knock interrupted the moment, and Class 1B, along with their teacher, entered, demanding silence. The teacher scolded the students for their noise, while Monoma, in his usual brash manner, attempted to belittle them. However, he was abruptly silenced by the class president, who apologized for his behavior as they exited. Class 1A exchanged glances, and Aizawa resumed the lessons as if nothing had happened. As the day came to a close, The students reflected on the events they had experienced, grateful for their camaraderie and the challenges they faced together. They hoped for better days ahead, wishing each other well as they parted ways. Amelia expressed her annoyance at the choice of Deku as the lead character, questioning the plot's reasoning. The group around her appeared confused, with Bakugo yelling in disbelief. Amelia suggested they move on, and the scene shifted to Deku, who mentioned that they had been sent north to UA High School. In another part of the school, Momo was busy putting up posters, excitedly declaring that the place had everything. She pointed to a bed stacked with library books, and Deku returned to his room, where he found Bakugo exploring. Bakugo greeted Deku enthusiastically, complimenting the look of his room and extending his hand for a shake, which surprised everyone around them. As the group reacted in shock to Bakugo's friendliness, they contemplated moving to a later scene, realizing that the current one was taking too long. Deku wandered into the woods near UA and stumbled upon a rock that led to an opening in the ground. Curiosity piqued, he discovered a book buried beneath the earth. After brushing off the dust, he began to read the mysterious text, which spoke of hidden research and warned against trusting anyone at the school, suggesting that they were concealing the institution's true past. Momo approached Deku, curious about what he was reading, but he hesitated to share the details. He suggested they find a more private place to discuss it. Kiri, intrigued, asked about the book's contents, but Amelia remained tight-lipped about it. Deku explained that the book discussed monsters at the school, and Momo teased him for being so gullible about the supernatural. The scene shifted again, showing Dipper emerging from a room, startled by Present Mike, who excitedly proclaimed his presence in the story. Amelia decided it was time to wrap things up for the day, promising to return the next day for more adventures. As the narrative progressed, it was revealed that Deku had found a book in the woods that detailed ominous secrets about the school. The characters speculated about the implications of the book's warnings, with Momo expressing skepticism about Deku's belief in such supernatural tales. The story continued with a brief interlude where Amelia shared her thoughts on a new project she was working on, titled Befriended. This story focused on a girl dealing with the loss of her parents and her connection to Kiri as her adoptive sister. It also explored Shinso's life, promising a blend of fun and emotional depth. Amelia's enthusiasm for her writing was evident as she hinted at potential plot twists and character developments, including theories about Deku's lineage and the mysterious traitor at UA. The narrative hinted at various theories regarding the characters' backgrounds and relationships, keeping readers engaged with the unfolding mystery. As the chapter concluded, Amelia invited readers to interact with the story, encouraging them to break the fourth wall and engage with the characters. The tale of Tenko Midoriya, an only child who had a younger brother named Izuku, was introduced, setting the stage for further exploration of their lives and adventures. He only occasionally cried. The first time Tenko held his younger brother was during a visit to the hospital. They shared a connection that was evident in their looks. Tenko cradled the baby close, but when the infant began to cry, he returned him to their mother. Tenko had white hair with green tips and green eyes, a shade darker than his brother's. He often wore merchandise featuring his favorite hero, All Might, whom he adored. Inko Midoriya often told her first son that he resembled his father, with the same striking white hair, except for the tips and dark eyes. After his father left following Izuku's Byakudeku, Inko could see the heartbreak in her son. She reassured him that everything would be all right. With a stable job, she was able to provide for their small family. About 2 weeks after Tenko turned 5, and when Izuku was around 1, they began to notice strange occurrences. Tenko's neck would itch incessantly, and he scratched it until it became red and raw. Concerned, Inko took him to the doctor, who suggested consulting a quirk specialist, as it might be a side effect of a quirk. At the doctor's office, the specialist informed Inko that her son possessed a very unusual quirk. He had the ability to disintegrate objects and even people. The doctor offered to conduct further testing if she wished. Inko looked at Tenko, who stood silently beside her, and asked how the doctor had reached this conclusion. The doctor explained that Tenko had disintegrated everything he touched during their examination. Inko nodded in understanding and agreed to further testing, inquiring how long it would take. The doctor estimated a couple of hours, assuring her that Tenko would be with child specialists. After leaving the doctor's office, Izuku and Inko returned home. Izuku, feeling a bit anxious, asked his mother if his brother was okay. Inko smiled down at him and reassured him that Tenko was just undergoing some tests related to his quirk. Once they were home, Izuku played with his toys, imagining himself as a hero, saving the day with his All Might action figure. Later, Izuku lay in bed, clutching his All Might figure, peacefully asleep. Inko peeked into his room before texting her friend Misuki to ask if she could come over to watch Izuku while she was out. Misuki agreed and asked if she could bring her son, Katsuki. Inko welcomed the idea, reminding her friend to keep Katsuki quiet so as not to wake Izuku. When Inko returned home, she found Katsuki cuddled up next to Izuku, who was still asleep. Inko felt a wave of warmth as she watched the two boys together. Tenko was relieved to have found a way to control his quirk, knowing that something terrible could have happened if they hadn't sought help. 4 years later, Izuku was now 5 years old and had learned about the reason behind his brother's gloves. Despite others viewing Tenko's quirk as villainous, Izuku remained supportive and kept his brother's spirits high. On Izuku's birthday, he received a quirk of his own, a unique variation of his father's and brother's abilities. His quirk, called Disintegrate Call, allowed him to disintegrate objects and then summon them back into his hands. However, using it too often resulted in painful headaches. The bond between the brothers remained strong, and they cherished their time together, away from societal judgment. As Izuku entered his second year at UA, he learned the truth about his father, which left him in shock. Throughout the summer, he and his friends, including the Big Three, spent time together, forming closer bonds while navigating their hero training. The school had mandated therapy for the students after the events of the previous year, and Izuku, Katsuki, Shoto, and Ida were among those who needed it the most. During the third week of the new school year, Izuku was called to Nizu's office, where he found a man with light blue hair and freckles, accompanied by Nijire. Nizu explained that the man had come to discuss Izuku's father. As Nizu led them to a private room, Izuku felt a mix of curiosity and apprehension about what he was about to learn. Izuku and Nijire sat in a black office chair, captivated by a video showcasing All Might saving people and bringing them to safety. Izuku expressed his admiration, declaring his longing to be just like All Might, while Nijire nodded in agreement, sharing his enthusiasm. Their innocent excitement was palpable, drawing a warm reaction from those watching. The scene shifted to a doctor's office, where a doctor delivered some difficult news. He informed a woman that her son was quirkless, while her daughter possessed a quirk. The doctor looked at the girl with a hint of apprehension and inquired about the quirks of her and her husband. The woman explained that she could summon small items to her and that her husband had the ability to breathe fire. The doctor was taken aback, realizing that their daughter might possess a quirk that could enhance her strength significantly, potentially even surpassing All Might. As the video continued, Mina expressed her sadness over Izuku's situation, and the others nodded in agreement. Their mother reassured Izuku, reminding him that he was still a hero in her eyes and that he would save many people in the future. Izuku's heart swelled with hope at her words, and he felt a renewed sense of determination. Years later, in 7th grade, Izuku remained committed to his dream of becoming a hero alongside his sister. His classmates admired his dedication, and even Bakudeku acknowledged Izuku's long-standing aspiration. One day, as they prepared to leave for school, Nijire urged Izuku to hurry, emphasizing the importance of being on time. At school, their teacher announced that everyone wanted to become heroes, prompting the students to activate their quirks. However, the teacher reminded them to refrain from using their quirks in school. As the discussion turned to which schools they would apply to, Bakudeku confronted Izuku, expressing his disdain for the idea of a quirkless student attending UA. He resorted to intimidation, causing a scene by blowing up Izuku's desk. Nijire stood up for her brother, confronting Bakudeku with fierce determination. Her protective nature surprised everyone, including Bakudeku, who backed away, sensing her resolve. The tension in the room was palpable, and as the bell rang, Izuku and Nijire walked home in silence, reflecting on the day's events. As they passed under a bridge, an unexpected encounter occurred. A green slime emerged, enveloping Izuku. Nijire quickly sprang into action, deciding to punch the creature, rendering it unconscious. She pulled Izuku free from the slimy grasp, and the onlookers expressed their disgust at the sight of Izuku covered in slime. Once home, Izuku apologized to Nijire for the incident, but she reassured him that it wasn't his fault. She promised to always protect him, her smile a comforting reminder of their bond. As the day came to a close, Amelia, the narrator, wrapped up the story, expressing her excitement for the next installment. The journey of Izuku and Nijire continued, filled with challenges and the unwavering support of family. Izuku lay on the ground, feeling the weight of exhaustion and pain. His father, a figure he both admired and feared, urged him to get up and continue training. Despite his shaky legs, Izuku managed to rise, only to be met with a punch to the stomach followed by a blow to the jaw that sent him crashing back down. He trembled, hoping his father would leave him alone for a while. All Might, the #1 hero, was not the father he had hoped for. He felt undeserving of the title. Meanwhile, a few miles away in the Todoroki household, Shoto sat on his bed, eagerly anticipating dinner. His sister had just announced that their mother was preparing soba, a dish he adored. Shoto appreciated his mother's cooking, but her hot soba held a special place in his heart. He was a good kid, striving to be the best he could be, though he occasionally engaged in harmless pranks with his brother Natsu. Shoto had a muscular build, with striking hair that was half red and half white, and his face remained unblemished. He knew that other kids at school envied him, but they could not endure the rigorous routines he followed to maintain his appearance. His skincare regimen involved using a fire-based mask followed by a freezing water treatment, which he meticulously executed. His father was training him to attend UA high school, adhering to a strict schedule that included morning runs and after-school workouts consisting of numerous sit-ups, push-ups, and pull-ups, followed by sparring sessions. His father was careful not to push him too far, always checking to ensure Shoto was okay after each hit. Shoto enjoyed a close relationship with his siblings. Toya, the eldest at 26, was a pro hero working with Team Phoenix. His older sister Fuyumi, at 23, was a caring teacher, and Shoto cherished her kindness. Natsu, 17, was nearing graduation from UA, and Shoto looked forward to seeing a familiar face there. The youngest sibling, Maya, was 13 and the center of attention in the family. She had a unique hairstyle with alternating strips of red and white, which Shoto found fascinating. As dinner time approached, Shoto raced to the kitchen, excited to see Toya and his husband. He embraced Toya warmly, feeling a sense of joy in their family gatherings. They all sat down for dinner, and Shoto's father shared the exciting news that he had put in a recommendation for Shoto at UA. His father's enthusiasm was palpable, even causing him to accidentally flare up his beard in excitement. Shoto had a strong bond with his father, often collaborating on ideas that involved their quirks. His father respected Shoto's creativity and encouraged him to explore his abilities. They both envisioned a future where Shoto could start as a sidekick to his father, and the thought filled him with anticipation. As the evening progressed, Shoto's mother suggested a family game night, a proposal that delighted everyone. The warmth of family and the promise of fun filled the room. Meanwhile, Izuku finally mustered the strength to get up after an hour of lying in pain. He winced as he surveyed his surroundings, noting the darkness that enveloped the house except for the light in his father's room. Quietly, he made his way to his own room and changed out of his blood-stained clothes. The dried blood on his mouth and the bruises on his ribs reminded him of the harsh training he endured. He stepped into a hot shower, the steam enveloping him as he washed away the remnants of his pain. The water turned a pinkish hue, mingling with the tears that streamed down his face. He questioned why his father, a celebrated hero, inflicted such suffering upon him. He never wanted to inherit his father's power, he simply wished to live freely. He already possessed his mother's quirk, which allowed him to manipulate objects around him, a gift he found powerful enough. As he finished his shower, his phone beeped with a message. He quickly dried off and checked the notification. The message informed him to wake up early the next morning for a recommendation spot. He felt a mix of emotions, responding with a resigned acknowledgement. The exchange was a reminder of the complicated relationship he had with his father, filled with expectations and pressure. The day before the UA exam, Bakudeku descended the stairs to the kitchen, where his mother awaited him. She greeted him with a beaming smile, expressing her pride in his decision to try out for UA, the most prestigious school in Japan. Bakudeku responded with confidence, reminding her that she should always expect the best from him, and he playfully bowed to emphasize his words. The next day marked the beginning of a new chapter for the students of Class 1A, all of whom had successfully passed the entrance exam. Shoto stepped into the enormous classroom, taking in the bustling atmosphere filled with his new classmates. At the front desk stood a tall boy with purple eyes and a muscular build, adorned with 4 purple spheres along the center of his head. He was engaged in conversation with a girl who had pink skin and hair, complete with horns. Beside them, a boy with yellow hair and a black streak appeared distracted, glancing at the girl. The purple-haired boy noticed the other boy's gaze and admonished him, emphasizing that all women should be treated with respect. He offered to teach him if he needed guidance. Just then, their homeroom teacher, Mr. Aizawa, entered the room with a cheerful demeanor, introducing himself and expressing his hope that the students would enjoy their time at UA. He was dressed in a blue dress shirt and plaid breeches, with blue goggles resting on his chest, embodying the spirit of the Erasure hero. Another teacher, known as Cloud Hopper, floated into the room on a cloud, wearing a light blue jumpsuit decorated to resemble clouds. He welcomed the students warmly, hoping they would come to love the school as much as he and Mr. Aizawa did. Meanwhile, Enji, Shoto's father, was in a state of distress. He was shouting at the police, demanding action in the search for his missing son. Frustrated by their response, he stormed out of the station, determined to find Shoto and ensure that those responsible for his disappearance would regret their actions. Shoto awoke groggily in a dimly lit room, a blndfld covering his eyes. He heard whispers around him before someone hushed the others, announcing that he was awake. The blndfld was removed, revealing a group of individuals who commented on his status as Endeavor's son. Confused and frightened, Shoto asked where he was. The captors explained that they needed a ransom from Endeavor in exchange for his safe return. As the conversation unfolded, Shoto expressed his reluctance to return to his father, revealing that he had not been harmed during his time with them. The captors exchanged glances, surprised by his words. They discussed the implications of his statement, realizing that he had suffered at the hands of his father. One of them declared that they must protect him, acknowledging the cruelty of society. Over time, Shoto grew accustomed to his surroundings and the people who had taken him in. He formed bonds with the members of the villain organization, particularly with a boy who was slightly older than him. They operated from a building that housed a cozy book cafe at the front, complete with shelves, chairs, and bean bags, while the back served as a baking area. Shoto learned to bake cookies and cake pops, finding joy in the simple pleasures of life away from his father. In an effort to distance himself from his past, Shoto dyed his hair black, symbolizing his longing to forget the pain associated with his father. He began to embrace his ice powers, using them to serve icy coffee and other treats to customers. One day, a man with white hair and bright green eyes approached the counter, praising the quality of the ice. Shoto nervously admitted that it was a result of his quirk, hoping the man would accept him despite his lineage. The young girl pondered the nature of her quirk, recalling a conversation about sweet ice. A boy had mentioned that his sister possessed a similar ability, allowing her to create flavored ice simply by thinking about it. Unfortunately, she had been sold off, a decision that weighed heavily on him. The girl was left in shock, realizing that he might be referring to her mother. Her mother had not only possessed an ice quirk but perhaps had the potential for flavors as well. This revelation sparked an idea in her mind. After finishing her work for the day, she made her way to the basement, which was divided into 2 sections. The front area contained beds for those who lived there, while the back served as a training ground for those with quirks, as well as a holding area for kidnapped individuals. Among the group, some were quirkless, but she focused on her own abilities. Determined to experiment, she thought of strawberries and attempted to create ice. Initially, the ice remained the same shade of blue as always. She persisted, trying again and again. After what felt like her 20th or 25th attempt, she finally succeeded. The ice transformed into a lovely pink hue. Excitement surged through her as she realized it was strawberry-flavored. Noticing Rocky standing nearby, she called him over, eager to share her discovery. He approached, intrigued by her enthusiasm. She offered him a piece of the ice, and he grinned at the unexpected flavor. He was curious about how she had achieved such a taste, and she explained that a man in a shop had told her about her mother's quirk, providing her with insights she had never known before. The man had lost contact with her mother long ago and did not recognize her. As the years passed, the girl, now 15, continued to live among villains but remained inspired by her hero, All Might. She was determined to become a hero herself. With this goal in mind, she tried out for the entrance exam and successfully passed. Adopting the name Tamale Shoto, she maintained her real name while changing everything else about her identity. Unfortunately, her allergy to contact lenses prevented her from altering her appearance further. Nevertheless, she walked into her new class with a smile, embracing this fresh start. This was her opportunity to leave her past behind and pursue her dream of becoming a hero. Amelia welcomed her audience back with enthusiasm, eager to share something special. The scene unfolded with two 5-year-old children playing together, one throwing a ball to the other. The boy, Shoto, called out to his friend, urging her to catch it. Aizu, the girl, confidently responded that she would. After a few exchanges, they lay down on the grass side by side, their colorful hair, half red and half white, shining in the sunlight. Onlookers admired their cuteness, and soon a man with a small beard resembling flames emerged from the house. He greeted his children warmly, inquiring about their day. Shoto, with his characteristic stoicism, acknowledged his father, while other children expressed surprise at the man's identity. Shoto lifted his left hand, revealing a small flame, prompting his father's prideful reaction. He then turned to Aizu, brushing some hair from her face and asking if she had discovered her quirk yet. Aizu, however, expressed her uncertainty, explaining that her mother had told her it could take time for her quirk to manifest. As the scene progressed, a child named Siro voiced his concerns about his father's intentions, revealing that he believed his father had only wanted strong quirks from his children to surpass a legendary hero. The atmosphere shifted as the other children looked at Shoto with shock and then directed their anger towards Endeavor, Shoto's father. Endeavor, seemingly unfazed, pulled Aizu away, leading her to another room. The narrative shifted to a later moment, where Shoto expressed concern for Aizu's well-being. He noticed her injuries and tried to comfort her, revealing a series of scars on her body. The audience reacted with sympathy, and Aizawa, a concerned figure, confronted Endeavor, demanding to know if he treated his children this way in real life. Endeavor remained silent, fear flickering in his eyes. Aizawa insisted that they needed to have a serious conversation, leading Shoto and Endeavor out of the room. The scene transitioned to a training montage, narrated by an older Izuku, who reflected on how he and Shoto were pushed to their limits during their training sessions. The imagery showed the twins exhausted on the ground, with remnants of their struggles evident around them. A concerned voice urged Endeavor to ease up on the children, but he dismissed the concern, insisting they could handle it. The scene depicted Shoto attempting to comfort their mother after Endeavor's harsh treatment. As the twins walked past other children playing, their father held them back, stating that those kids lived different lives. The narrative then shifted to Shoto in the kitchen, where his mother was on the phone. As the teapot boiled, Shoto curled up in fear, visibly shaken. Aizu entered the kitchen, noticing her brother's distress and trying to help him. The story continued with the twins participating in their entrance exam. Izuku celebrated her victory in the race, while Shoto, still shaken, explained that they had not fought any robots, as those with recommendations had raced ahead of them. The excitement built as they realized they had both been accepted into the school without relying on their quirks, determined to prove to their father that they could become heroes on their own. As the narrative drew to a close, Amelia announced a segment filled with humorous memes about the Todoroki family, eliciting laughter from the audience. She playfully teased Shoto and Momo, prompting a blush from them. Concerned for Shoto's feelings, Amelia offered him the option to step out for the next segment, which he accepted. The story concluded with a light-hearted note, as Amelia prepared to share a humorous reference that required some explanation, leaving the audience in anticipation. At 6 years old, the child discovered they possessed a powerful quirk that allowed them to float objects toward and away from themselves. However, this ability came at a cost, causing internal damage and physical pain whenever it was used. The child was eager to share this newfound power with their friend, Kaken, especially after enduring teasing for being labeled quirkless. A playdate had been arranged, and the anticipation filled the air as they arrived at the park. As the child ran ahead, they noticed a sad-looking boy sitting alone on a bench across the park. The boy appeared to be around 15, with burn scars adorning his arms and face. His red hair and darker aqua eyes contrasted with his green t-shirt and jeans. The child approached him, concerned about his distress. Despite the boy's attempt to dismiss the child's concern with a faint smile, the child felt compelled to offer comfort. Sitting beside him, the child swung their legs in the air, unable to reach the ground. They instinctively wrapped their arms around the boy in a hug, which caused him to flinch in surprise. The child explained that they thought he needed a hug, and soon noticed tears welling in the boy's eyes. The child gasped, feeling guilty for causing the boy's tears, but he reassured them that it wasn't their fault. Curiosity piqued, the child asked who had hurt him, but the boy seemed reluctant to share. Undeterred, the child stood up and gently pulled the boy's hand, encouraging him to join them. They returned to the child's mother, who noticed the boy's distress and inquired about what had happened. The child explained that the boy was crying and appeared to be hurt. The mother examined the boy with concern and led him to a nearby bench to talk. While they waited, the child played with their toys. When the mother returned, she informed the child that Kaken could not make it and that they would be taking the boy, Toya, home with them. The child nodded and climbed into the back seat of the car, while the mother and Toya sat in the front. During the drive, the mother assured Toya that she would help him feel better once they arrived home. Upon reaching their apartment, the child noticed that Toya was taller than their mother. She guided Toya inside and asked him if he had any allergies. When he replied no, she returned from the kitchen with a cup of water, 2 Tylenol pills, and some cream. Although hesitant, Toya accepted the water and pills, but the mother chose to apply the cream to his arms and face instead. The mother then mentioned taking Toya to the police station the following day, but he reacted with fear, pleading not to go back. Confused by his response, the child asked where his home was. Toya explained that he no longer had a place to call home, having lost his house due to unfortunate circumstances. The child felt a surge of empathy and was about to ask another question when their mother suggested they do some coloring. In the living room, the child took out markers and paper to create a card for Toya. They turned on the television, which was reporting on an accident at the Endeavor family household, revealing that the oldest child had died in a fire caused by a loss of quirk control. The child called for their mother, who came in to see the news report, and Toya stood beside her. The mother expressed her sympathy for Toya's ordeal, embracing him in a comforting gesture. From that day forward, Toya began training for the UA entrance exams. Over the next year, he honed his fire abilities, learning to control them without causing harm to himself. He acquired special gloves and fireproof clothing to protect himself, ensuring he could use his quirk safely. As the entrance exam approached, Toya reflected on the past year since he had faked his death. He had dyed his hair green and adopted the surname Midoriya, blending into a new life that felt surprisingly caring and supportive. He had never experienced such kindness, aside from his mother, who had become distant after he developed his quirk. Suddenly, a girl with pink pigtails and freckles brought him back to reality. She had bright green eyes and wore a floral dress with black leggings. Noticing the tears on his cheeks, she asked if he was all right. Despite his initial hesitation, Toya assured her that he was fine. The girl introduced herself as Kira Ezra and continued to chat animatedly as they walked together. Toya found comfort in her chatter, which reminded him of his younger brother, who often spoke endlessly about quirks and heroes. It was truly remarkable how quickly some people could speak. Her eyes widened in surprise at the thought, and he nodded in agreement. They arrived at the gathering hall and took their seats next to each other. The voice hero, present Mike, was enthusiastically discussing various robots. which filled him with excitement. Once the event began, they were directed to their designated areas. As soon as the doors opened, he dashed inside, unleashing his powers to melt down several robots. In the midst of the chaos, he noticed a girl in danger of being trampled by one of the machines. Without hesitation, he rushed over, incinerating the robot and pulling her to safety. He checked on her, and she looked up at him, momentarily stunned. After a brief moment, she managed to respond, a faint blush coloring her cheeks as she took in his muscular build. He cleared his throat, and she quickly returned her gaze to his face, expressing her gratitude. Assuming she would join the fight against the remaining robots, he turned to continue battling. However, he soon realized she was following him, likely hoping to get his number. Unfortunately for her, he was not interested in that way. A smirk crossed his face as he heard the announcement that the test was over. He sprinted away, leaving her behind. He felt confident about his performance, estimating he had earned at least 30 points. Once home, he took a shower and got dressed, only to find his younger brother, Aizu, waiting outside his door. He affectionately ruffled Aizu's hair and received a warm hug in return. Aizu expressed his excitement about the test results, eager to know if he had passed. With a confident grin, he assured Aizu that he had done exceptionally well, especially in melting the robots. He led Aizu downstairs, where their mother was preparing his favorite meal, onigiri. She had just finished wrapping the seaweed around the rice ball when they arrived. She welcomed them to the table, where 3 plates awaited. As they ate, he savored the delicious flavors of his favorite food, a satisfied smile spreading across his face. After dinner, Aizu climbed into his lap, and he handed his phone to his brother to play a game. He decided to start a new anime series, even though he was already halfway through 3 others. He chose Death Note, which began slowly but quickly captivated him. He pondered whether there could be a quirk similar to the notebook's power, one that allowed someone to write down a name and cause death. He knew of quirks like the Shinigami Eyes, which granted the ability to see such details. Weeks later, a letter arrived for him. He rushed to his room, closed the door and tore it open. A small disc fell out, and a voice, presumably that of a teacher, informed him that he had passed and was accepted into the school. He was thrilled at the prospect of attending. When he arrived at his new school, he spotted the same pink-haired girl from before already in the classroom. She greeted him with the same bubbly energy as their previous encounter. They sat together in the front row and chatted for a while. Her name was Shinso Asuka, and she had a younger brother the same age as Aizu, which sparked the possibility of them all hanging out together. Asuka possessed the quirk of control, allowing her to manipulate any person or object, though it came with drawbacks that left her tired after extensive use. Their teacher entered the room and made it clear that those who were not serious about making friends should leave. After quieting the class, he instructed everyone to change into suits from the locker rooms for a field test. Once they were ready, they headed down, only to find that the boys were already gathered there. After a brief delay, the girls joined them, and the teacher muttered about the annual issue of a pervert causing trouble. The class had already lost 1 student due to expulsion. The test began, starting with a ball toss. He felt a twinge of anxiety, worried that someone might recognize his fire abilities. However, he reassured himself that it had been over a year since his last encounter, so he was likely safe. After completing the tests, he placed 4th, which he considered a solid result. Although he had used his fire, no one seemed to connect it back to him. Just as he was about to leave with Asuka by his side, he heard his name being called. The teacher requested a moment of his time, asking the rest of the class to change. Approaching the teacher, he tilted his head in confusion as the teacher turned to address the departing students. The teacher then posed a direct question about the resemblance of his fire to that of Toya Todoroki. Panic surged through him as he realized his secret might be uncovered. He had blonde hair that surrounded his head. A girl named Eri waved at him, hoping for a friendly response. The boy looked at her for a moment and asked who she was. Eri introduced herself, but he continued to frown, making her wonder if he disliked her like the other kids at the daycare. They often called her a villain, and she faced teasing for her red eyes every week during her 3-day visits. Tears began to well up in Eri's eyes, causing the boy to panic. Class 1A, her friends from Deku's class, noticed and glared at him. Monama, the boy, stumbled over his words as he felt the weight of their stares. He looked down at the small child who was now crying. He had intended to be a hero, and making little kids cry was definitely not part of that plan. He remembered how his own brothers sometimes cried and how much little ones appreciated affection, hugs, back rubs, snuggles, and smiles. As Eri's cries intensified, Monama felt a pang of guilt. He knew that his pride might take a hit, but he realized he needed to comfort her. He put on a small smile and bent down to her level on the bench. He reassured her that it was okay and introduced himself gently. Eri looked up at him, asking if he hated her, which made Monama's heart melt. He found her adorable and felt a strong urge to protect her. He quickly assured her that he did not hate her, and the bewildered looks from Class 1A only added to the absurdity of the moment. Kendo, a fellow classmate, arrived just in time to witness Monama holding Eri in his lap and braiding her hair. Confusion spread among their classmates as Kendo approached the table to sit next to Momo, another friend. They often discussed their kids and shared parenting techniques. Momo inquired about what had happened, and Kendo explained that Monama had initially made Eri cry but then comforted her and started braiding her hair. Momo was taken aback, realizing that Monama had shown a softer side. Eri exclaimed how funny Monama was, which surprised Kendo. It seemed that Monama had a unique ability to calm Eri, a feat not easily achieved. Monama boldly declared that he would risk his life to save her, leaving Eri and several classmates in awe. Kendo couldn't help but feel proud. Her child was growing up. In a different time and place, a child was born radiating light, sparking confusion and wonder among the people. This child, a royal, was thought to be a blessing from the gods. As other children began to emerge with strange powers reminiscent of comic book heroes and villains, the world transformed. The hero Deku, the #1 hero, dedicated himself to protecting everyone from evil, marking a significant shift in humanity's understanding of their reality. This tale began with the first child, who was born when pieces of the sun fell from the sky, landing in the kingdom of Corona, just outside of China. They named the glowing baby girl Rapunzel. However, tragedy struck when she was kidnapped. In the wake of her abduction, other expectant mothers in the kingdom and beyond fell ill. Doctors discovered that only the sun-drop flowers could cure them. As the mothers who received the flowers gave birth, their children began to exhibit powers around the ages of 3 to 4. In the isolated town of Arendelle, the queen fell ill about a year after Rapunzel's birth. Her sister in Corona sent her the flower mixture, and 4 months later, she gave birth to a baby girl named Elsa, who possessed ice powers. Another child was born in a village near Arendelle, gifted with the ability to control the elements: water, fire, earth, and air. This boy ran away at the age of 12, using his powers to help his village and creating rock monsters for protection. He befriended a forest animal, a gecko, and infused it with fire powers. He crafted a glacier using his water abilities, reminiscent of the song his mother used to sing to him. This place became his home, and he waited for someone like him to arrive. Each morning he gazed out at the vast forest and the mountains until one day he spotted a castle perched on the mountainside. He mused to himself about the possibility of others like him. His horse emerged from the water to greet him, and he mounted it, setting off on an adventure. They explored the land, soaring through the air like a fairy, and looked over the village filled with happy people. Despite his longing to join them, he felt different and out of place. After seeing the castle, he began calling out into the wind, his voice distorted and high-pitched, hoping to reach anyone who might hear him. Nothing was working. In a moment of desperation, he decided to take a reckless action that would capture their attention. He soared over the town where he knew she was, gathering all the flames and unleashing powerful winds. Once the townspeople had evacuated, he began to shake the ground beneath them. He noticed her engaged in a heated argument with someone before she started to pack her things. She was coming closer. As she approached the edge of the woods, she attempted to run through the water he controlled. He thwarted her efforts each time, but she was not giving up. Where was she? Suddenly, he saw the prince emerge from the water, carrying her on his back. The prince set her down gently on the ground and waited for her to rise before leading her to his home. He playfully called out to her again. He estimated she was around 18, as she was the queen of that town. He had been watching for someone like her for 7 years, while he himself was 19. She was strikingly appealing, and just as he was about to approach her, she looked up and startled him. For a moment she paused, but then her friends arrived, and they all left together, leaving him feeling distraught. Time passed, and he couldn't shake the feeling that he could have, or perhaps should have, saved her. Now she was likely in danger. The water he commanded was wild and unruly, crashing down upon the town and threatening her. But then, to his astonishment, she stopped the water. She had the power to block it. She returned to her friends, who cheered her on, while he retreated back to his home. As he observed from the woods, he noticed her approaching. He descended to meet her. She greeted him, surprised to see him. She mentioned that she had seen him watching her in Otahallan, the name his mother had used in a song. He invited her to follow him, promising to show her around. In time, she discovered that there were other children like her, possessing powers beyond those of her cousin. The kingdom was filled with kids, all with unique abilities. As the next generation emerged, more children were born with powers, while many remained ordinary. Those with powers became objects of fear, leading to strict laws against their use. This was the tale of how quirks came to be. Meanwhile, Izuku walked to his desk at the back of the classroom, passing Kaken's desk before sitting down. He greeted Kaken, who responded with a curt acknowledgement. Izuku felt a wave of fear wash over him, wondering if today would be the day he faced dire consequences or if the world was on the brink of chaos. He remained frozen in fear until Kaken snapped at him, demanding to know what he was staring at. Confusion clouded Izuku's mind as he questioned his own sanity, sitting in silence for the rest of the day. Mr. Aizawa was visibly frustrated with the students, having lost trust in them, especially after Izuku had helped save Kaken. They had moved into the dorms, still striving to regain Aizawa's confidence. Izuku understood that certain things could alleviate Aizawa's stress: cats, naps, coffee, and perhaps the presence of Mike. In a moment of determination, Izuku decided to bring Aizawa a cat. He entered the teacher's dorm, cradling the kitten in his arms, and approached Aizawa. Aizawa, appearing bored, asked what Izuku wanted. Izuku presented the fluffy calico kitten as a gift. Aizawa recoiled in disgust, expressing his dislike for cats, which left Izuku bewildered. In the common room, Todoroki, known for his strained relationship with his father, was calmly speaking on the phone with him. Izuku approached and silently inquired who Todoroki was talking to. When Todoroki mouthed, "Dad," Izuku felt a surge of concern at how composed he seemed. After a brief conversation, Todoroki ended the call with an affectionate farewell, leaving Izuku shocked that Todoroki had expressed love for his father. Mineta approached Momo, prompting Izuku to feel uneasy and ready to intervene. However, Mineta merely initiated a conversation, which heightened Izuku's concern. Later, the class gathered in the common room, where Izuku was engaged in conversation with Uraraka when Kaken entered. Izuku called out to Kaken, suggesting they have a quick chat outside. Kaken tensed, recalling the last time Izuku had called him that name, which had ended poorly for him. They stepped into the hallway, where Izuku inquired about Kaken's plans with the class. Kaken shuffled away, clearly uncomfortable. As the conversation unfolded, Kirishima speculated whether Midoriya had harmed Bakugo, while Pikachu chimed in, noting that he had never heard Kaken referred to by his real name. Mina, in a joking tone, suggested they plan a funeral for Kaken, who would be missed. They began gathering students, flowers, and even digging a grave behind the dorms, complete with a gravestone inscribed with Kaken's name. Kaken finally admitted that they were planning a prank on Izuku, intending for everyone to act weirder than usual. Izuku, with a grin, decided to let them continue their game, eager to see how it would unfold. In a mock ceremony, the students gathered to mourn the loss of Katsuki Bakugo, a brave young boy who would be missed by all who cared for him. Mina expressed her sorrow over the loss, leaning her head down with tears on her cheeks. The group was mourning the death of a beloved Pomeranian when they heard popping sounds from around the corner. To their surprise, The Pomeranian appeared, barking loudly and chasing after them, the sounds of explosions echoing in their ears. It had been quite an eventful week for Class 1A. In the midst of this chaos, a dark premonition loomed over Izuku Midoriya. He envisioned blood, sensing that his future was grim. He feared that he, All Might's successor, was destined to die. This quirk of his allowed him to see the fates of others, often revealing cruel endings. He had witnessed many tragic deaths, which made him cautious about using his ability. Yet, he felt compelled to know how the current mission would unfold. In a fleeting moment he saw himself running toward a spike only to be impaled. As he lay on the ground, bleeding slightly but shielded by a rock, another hero intervened. Overhaul was knocked unconscious, and they had succeeded in rescuing the girl. Izuku, still dazed, began to question what had happened, but Night Eye interrupted him, confirming their victory. Pro-heroes rushed to the scene, finding a chaotic situation. They tended to the injured and rushed Izuku into surgery, placing him on life support. The prognosis was grim. He likely wouldn't survive the night. Many students from UA, along with numerous pro-heroes who knew him, gathered around his bedside. All Might struggled to contain his emotions, breaking down in tears as he addressed Izuku. With the little strength he had left, Izuku urged All Might to check his notebook, which contained important information in case of his death. He managed to pluck a hair and entrusted it to Mirio, feeling a sense of peace about his fate. Class 1A mourned the loss of one of their own. Eri, confused about Izuku's absence, was reassured by Aizawa, who didn't want her to feel guilty and chose to lie about the situation. A funeral was organized, bringing the school community together. After several heartfelt speeches, All Might stepped up to the stage. He shared the words from Izuku's notebook, which revealed the young hero's aspirations and struggles. Izuku had always dreamed of being a hero, working tirelessly to achieve his goals despite his mental health challenges. He encouraged his classmates to pursue greatness in whatever path they chose, emphasizing that heroism could take many forms. He reminded them that every quirk, no matter how powerful or weak, was meant for them to use in their unique ways. As All Might concluded his reading, tears filled his eyes. Izuku had left this world content, surrounded by those he considered family. He had smiled in his final moments, finding release from the hardships he had faced and cherishing the meaningful relationships he had built. The year had been tumultuous, filled with both challenges and unexpected moments of joy. As the characters reflected on the events that had unfolded, they recognized the weight of the difficulties they had faced. The pandemic had disrupted lives, and the loss of loved ones had left a profound impact. Yet, amidst the chaos, there were glimmers of hope. Exciting collaborations and community support emerged, reminding everyone of the resilience of the human spirit. In the midst of these reflections, one character found themselves in a particularly challenging situation. Their family was without a permanent home, navigating life in a temporary Airbnb. Plans to relocate to another country for a job opportunity had been derailed by the pandemic, leaving them feeling adrift. However, a new house had been found, conveniently located near family, which brought a sense of comfort and connection. As they settled into this new chapter, there was a longing for life to return to some semblance of normalcy. The character hoped for stability and a chance to reconnect with friends and family. In an effort to bring some lightness to their situation, they decided to share humor through memes, acknowledging that while it might not be a complete substitute for updates, it was a way to stay connected during a busy and uncertain time. With plans to focus on personal matters and academic responsibilities, the character looked forward to the future, hoping that brighter days were ahead. He looked at the retreating class and then turned back, seeking an honest answer about the connection between the fire and Toya Todoroki. The realization struck him that his teacher was observant, and since his first name remained unchanged, it was likely that he recognized him. It felt wrong to lie, so he confessed that he used to be Toya Todoroki but no longer identified as one. The incident surrounding his death had been an accident, and he rushed through his explanation. His teacher stared at him, deep in thought, before expressing a longing to clarify the situation. He was interrupted when he jokingly mentioned that it was difficult to speak straightforwardly when he himself was not straight. The teacher sighed, rubbing his forehead in frustration, and proceeded to summarize the situation. His family believed he was dead, he was living with the Midoriyas, and he had faked his death, whether intentionally or accidentally. He nodded in agreement with everything his teacher said. With a sigh that conveyed exasperation, the teacher offered to take him to his mother's house, revealing that she was his guardian. He looked up, meeting the teacher's tired dark eyes, and agreed to the plan. The teacher instructed him to change, noting that his classmates were likely finished with their activities. After changing in the locker room, he returned to the classroom, which was mostly empty. Asuka remained there, expressing her longing to walk with him. He explained that the teacher was coming to check on his home life, and she nodded in understanding. They walked down the road, with Mr. Aizawa a short distance behind them. Asuka turned into a driveway, and he waved goodbye, realizing they lived relatively close to one another. He led his teacher to his apartment building and opened the door, announcing his arrival. His mother emerged from the kitchen, greeting Mr. Aizawa warmly and inviting him to sit down. They settled in together, and as they passed Izuku's room, he noticed his younger brother watching an old clip of All Might. The teacher inquired about his relationship with his mother, and she confirmed that he was indeed her son, allowing him to be called either by his name or Toya. The teacher then mentioned that Izuku had another family, being the son of Endeavor. His mother acknowledged this, affirming her acceptance of him as her son. He felt a wave of warmth at her acceptance, wondering how she would react to his other siblings. Stepping away to give them some time to talk, he returned to Izuku's room. Crouching down beside him, he greeted his brother, who was excitedly watching the clip. Izuku practically screamed his name, and he playfully asked if he was trying to impersonate Present Mike, which made Izuku giggle. Izuku stood on his chair, arms outstretched, and he picked him up for a big hug. He asked about Izuku's day, and his brother excitedly recounted his adventures at preschool, playing with Kakin, and enjoying ice cream with their mother. In turn, he shared that he had met everyone in his class and that one of his classmates had a little brother whom Izuku would likely get to play with. Izuku was fascinated, playing with the braided rope bracelet on his wrist. As Izuku began to push against his chest, signaling he wanted to be set down, he gently placed him on the ground. Izuku dashed out of his room to find their mother, and he followed closely behind. He noticed Izuku's wide-eyed expression as he looked at Mr. Aizawa, who seemed surprised that Izuku recognized him. Izuku squealed in excitement, calling him an awesome hero, which made Mr. Aizawa chuckle, noting that he was an underground hero and not often recognized outside of his full gear. Izuku appeared to be in shock, having just received a compliment from a pro hero, which was understandable given his admiration for them. As Mr. Aizawa prepared to leave, he ruffled Izuku's hair, pausing briefly to appreciate the texture before waving goodbye and stepping outside. They all waved farewell to him as he departed, and Izuku quickly returned to his excited muttering, clearly overwhelmed by the encounter. It seemed he would be caught up in that excitement for quite some time. Aizawa and Izuku were stepbrothers, both navigating the complexities of their lives without knowing much about their parents. It was speculated that Aizawa's father was All for One, a notorious figure in their world. Similarly, Izuku's father was also believed to be All for One, though they had different mothers. Izuku's maternal grandmother, Nana Shimura, had left one child for adoption in Japan before moving to America, where she had another child, Inko. Nana had faced great tragedy at the hands of All for One, which left Inko to grow up under her father's care after her mother's untimely death. All for One returned to Japan to eliminate Nana's successor and encountered Aizawa's mother, resulting in an unexpected PR Jinsuai. However, he had to leave her to pursue his vendetta against Toshinori, who was constantly on the move. During his time in America, he fell in love with Inko, and they eventually married. He concealed his true identity from her, pretending to be a businessman while she longed to return to her mother's homeland after her father passed away. Inko later discovered she was PRGNT with Izuku, while All for One continued to send her financial support and kept a watchful eye on Toshinori. He learned that one of his sons had developed a quirk similar to his own, albeit not permanent, while the other remained quirkless. He felt a mix of disappointment and pride, knowing that his first son, Shota, had become an underground hero, while Izuku aspired to follow in his footsteps. After the USJ attack, All for One felt a surge of frustration upon learning that both of his sons had been injured, yet he maintained his composure, relieved they were still alive. He gazed at the photographs of his wives, longing for their affection. He reflected on his past choices with regret, wishing he could change the course of his life. He felt a sense of weakness when he thought of his wife's disapproving gaze, yet he found solace in making her laugh and witnessing her strength as she fought for their son. Despite the pain he had caused, he experienced fleeting moments of happiness when he saw his son's smile. He felt a sense of responsibility for Tenko, who harbored a longing to confront All Might. In an effort to protect his sons, All for One sent Tenko to the USJ with a Nomu, ensuring that it would not harm either of his sons, regardless of any orders from Tenko. As the war progressed, All for One felt the urgency to reach out to his sons. He contacted a spy at UA, who reported that Izuku had disappeared, tears evident in his voice. The spy struggled with his emotions, reminiscent of a past follower, Twice, who had cared deeply for his comrades. All for One recognized the burden of leadership and the toll it took on him, feeling overwhelmed by the loss of life that surrounded him. Determined to find Izuku before hope faded completely, he disguised himself and searched through the debris of the city. Suddenly he received a call from Inko, who was in distress over Izuku's disappearance. She expressed her fear and sorrow, and All for One wished he could comfort her in person. He assured her that he would come as soon as possible, despite his ongoing commitments. While waiting outside a building, he overheard two students discussing their plans. One boy bore a striking resemblance to Izuku, though he lacked the freckles that adorned his son's face. As they entered the building, All for One remained hidden, observing the chaos around him. Just then, a figure named Muscular burst through the building, causing havoc. All for One questioned why no one seemed aware of Muscular's weaknesses, pondering the absurdity of the situation. The black-haired boy was suddenly thrown against the wall, and from the dust emerged the figure he had been seeking, Izuku. After ensuring the safety of the people a few streets away, Izuku prepared to confront Muscular. Although he felt the urge to rush in, he held back. After a brief pause in the action, Izuku left the scene, confident that everyone was out of danger. As he turned, he sensed a presence behind him and called out, unsure of who it might be. AFO responded by revealing that he had deactivated his quirk. He greeted Izuku, who immediately adopted a defensive stance, feeling a mix of caution and confusion. AFO assured him that he had no intention of fighting, which only deepened Izuku's suspicion, as he felt the man was mocking All Might. AFO expressed a longing to talk and invited Izuku to sit down, though he understood if Izuku was reluctant. After a moment of hesitation, Izuku approached, sensing a hint of sincerity in AFO's demeanor, though he remained uncertain. AFO began to share his regrets, admitting to numerous mistakes in his life, including forcing a quirk on his brother and taking innocent lives. He acknowledged that he could not play the victim and emphasized that Izuku was not one of his mistakes but rather a blessing in his life, along with Inko, Leona, and Shota. He expressed pride in watching them grow. Izuku felt a wave of disbelief and disgust wash over him as he processed AFO's words. AFO then revealed that he was both Izuku's and Aizawa's father. Izuku was momentarily speechless, struggling to comprehend the revelation. He questioned whether AFO was lying, but the man's serious demeanor made it hard to dismiss. AFO confirmed his identity and explained that he had wanted to be part of Izuku's life but feared the judgment that would come from his past mistakes. He revealed that Inko believed he was Hisashi Midoriya, a business owner. This revelation left Izuku confused, as that was indeed his father's name and business. He wondered if AFO had accessed records to learn this information. Izuku then proposed a deal. If AFO would go to jail and call off his men, he would agree to return quietly to UA. AFO accepted the terms, willing to face any punishment if it meant being able to see his sons grow up. He transformed back into Hisashi Midoriya, and together they headed back to UA, where Inko awaited them. Upon arriving at the gates, they were greeted by Eraserhead, who was on watch duty. His eyes widened at the sight of the two, prompting him to call for assistance. AFO gazed at his other son with affection, while a few pro-heroes, including Nizu, emerged alongside Inko. She gasped at the sight of her two boys, overwhelmed with emotion. Inko rushed forward to embrace them, tears streaming down her face. She asked AFO how he had found them, to which he replied with a chuckle, stating it was a matter of searching. The reunion was filled with tears of joy, though AFO held back his own emotions, contemplating whether to reveal more about his past. As he prepared to share another secret, he mentioned that Aizawa was his son from a different mother, born before he met Inko. He had lost contact shortly after Aizawa's marriage but remembered his name and appearance. The revelation left Aizawa in shock, as he had never known his father and had lost his mother at a young age. Overwhelmed by the weight of the information, Aizawa collapsed, struggling to process everything he had just learned. Yagi Toshinori introduced himself nervously, feeling the weight of Enji's gaze as he assessed his appearance. Toshinori wore a hero-themed shirt paired with worn blue jeans that were riddled with holes. Enji, curious about the state of Toshinori's breaths, inquired about the rips. Toshinori explained that he aspired to be a hero, often running around his house pretending to save his stuffed animals from imaginary villains. Enji was excited by the idea of them both becoming heroes and envisioned a future where they could work together in an office, a dream that made Toshinori nod in agreement, albeit hesitantly. As time passed, Enji proudly showcased his newly acquired quirk to Toshinori, who had been his friend for a year. Enji revealed that he had received his quirk the previous night, almost causing a disaster when his pillow caught fire. Toshinori, filled with anticipation, expressed his eagerness to discover his own quirk. However, his excitement was dampened when he learned from the doctor that he was likely quirkless, a revelation that brought a frown to his face. He had been teased by other children, which only added to his distress. Enji reassured him that being quirkless meant he would have to work harder to keep up, acknowledging the hurtful comments from their peers. As they grew older, now both 9 and in the 4th grade, Enji invited Toshinori over to his house. Enji, with a supportive but teasing demeanor, encouraged Toshinori to overcome his stuttering, suggesting that it showed fear, something heroes should not exhibit. Enji's family was lively and supportive, with a mother who possessed a telekinesis quirk and a father with a fire quirk. Enji had siblings, including an older sister named Inko, who was developing her own abilities, and younger brothers who exhibited a mix of their parents' quirks. Enji noticed that Toshinori had a crush on Inko, as Toshinori would blush whenever she spoke to him. Enji playfully teased Toshinori about his feelings, assuring him that he approved of their potential relationship but warned him to treat Inko well. Despite his embarrassment, Toshinori felt a mix of excitement and anxiety about the situation. As time went on, Toshinori admired Inko's ambition to study nursing at UA High School, where they both hoped to enroll in 2 years. They were determined to build their strength and prepare for their futures as heroes. When they finally entered UA, the second day brought a strength test, and Toshinori excitedly captured a photo of them in their sports uniforms, despite Enji's serious demeanor about their training and competition. The friendly rivalry intensified as Enji and Toshinori faced off against other students. Enji, determined to prove himself, fought fiercely, while Toshinori aimed to excel as well. However, their friendship began to fray as competition took precedence. Enji's aggressive tactics during their training led to a rift between them, with Enji insisting they were now enemies. Toshinori felt the sting of betrayal, tears welling up as he struggled to understand why their bond had deteriorated so quickly. As months passed, the distance between the two boys grew. Toshinori found solace in his relationship with Inko, who offered him comfort during his moments of sadness. Despite his academic success and physical strength, Toshinori felt the weight of Enji's absence, longing for the friendship they once shared. As they approached graduation from UA, both boys prepared to embark on their journeys as heroes. Toshinori, excited about his future, proposed to Inko that they start their careers together in America. Inko eagerly accepted, thrilled at the prospect of joining him on this new adventure. Years later, Toshinori learned that Enji had started a family of his own, a reminder of how much had changed since their childhood dreams of heroism. He decided to return to Japan for a couple of years to get to know his nephew and niece, as well as their new sibling. 4 years passed, and the three Todoroki siblings grew up, developing a strong bond with their aunt and uncle, who occasionally visited. This connection frustrated Enji, as he could not understand how his children could like his rivals. Despite his indifference toward his children, he had to acknowledge that they had all shown their quirks, none of which were perfect. The only one he had trained was Toya, who, despite his shortcomings, was stronger than Enji himself. In light of this, Enji decided to have another child. Toshi and Inko also chose to expand their family. Shoto was born first, possessing a striking combination of red and white hair, with one turquoise eye and one gray eye. A few months later, Izuku was born, with green hair that had hints of blonde. His left eye was green, while his right eye was blue. When the cousins met for the first time, Shoto, at 7 months old, crawled over to 1-month-old Izuku and, much to his father's dismay, embraced the small child. Toshi was thrilled that the two children had formed a bond. They were now best friends and cousins. He had accepted that he and Enji would never be friends, but he found solace in the friendship blossoming between their children. In a separate scene, Todoroki addressed an audience, welcoming them to the first segment of his book. He humorously instructed them not to look behind a red curtain, despite muffled sounds coming from behind it. He then presented a board labeled UA Traitor, claiming to have compiled evidence that could reveal the identity of the traitor. He discussed various characters, including himself, Midoriya, Bakudeku, Kirishima, Ochako, and Ida, asserting that none of them could be the traitor, as they were beloved by the fandom. He then shifted his focus to the middle group of characters, which included Jiro, Momo, Kaminari, Mina, Mineta, and Azui, suggesting that one of them was likely the traitor. Finally, he mentioned the background characters, such as Shoji, Koda, Sato, Hagakure, and Ojiro, concluding that they were unlikely to be involved. Just as he was about to reveal who he believed to be the most likely traitor, a loud noise interrupted him, causing him to pause. Suddenly, he found himself confronted by the author, who demanded the return of the book, accusing him of taking the content from a YouTube video. The tension in the air was palpable as Todoroki stammered in response, realizing the gravity of the situation. Interning with Endeavor was an experience she never wanted to repeat. As she approached UA's main building, she questioned her life choices that had led her to this point. At the gate, she spotted Nizu waiting to greet her. He was compelling her to become the UA Class 1A counselor. She could sense the mental struggles permeating the school, and she felt overwhelmed by the prospect of reliving the students' traumatic experiences each time they spoke about them. She could empathize with their emotions, which was not a pleasant experience, but it did help her understand her patients better. Unfortunately, the only thing that could provide her with any relief was wine or alcohol, which she could not indulge in to the point of inebriation, often leaving her feeling frustrated. As she neared the gate, Nizu approached her with a cheerful demeanor, expressing hope that her travels had gone smoothly. She grumbled in response, but he merely smiled and walked into the school, leaving her to wonder what she had gotten herself into, or rather, what Nizu had forced her into. As the year progressed, she grew closer to the students, except for Tenya, with whom she maintained a comfortable distance. She was fine with that. If they had wanted to be friends, they could have been, but she found it amusing to tease him. One positive outcome of her time at UA was that she had started dating Tenya's brother early in her tenure. As the first year drew to a close, she reflected on how much she would miss the students, even Tenya. After just a few months, she would return to her therapy practice. Midoriya had learned to control his quirk, managing to avoid injuring himself and finally getting some sleep after struggling with insomnia. Todoroki was healing, thanks to his father no longer abusing him and his willingness to discuss his trauma with someone other than his love interest. Bakugu's anger had subsided, and although he still faced challenges, he had learned to control his outbursts and even managed to smile occasionally, especially around Kirishima. Kirishima himself was making progress, expanding his vocabulary beyond just manly. Kuji had become more vocal, speaking up instead of whispering. Hagakure discovered she could turn her invisibility off, surprising everyone with her strong physique, green eyes, shoulder-length blonde hair, freckles, and slender face. Momo had gained confidence and, despite some initial hesitation, had started expressing herself more freely, even picking up some colorful language along the way, for which Cece felt somewhat responsible. Ciro had revealed deeper issues that needed addressing, but he was making strides in his mental health. Achiko had developed multiple personality disorder, and one of her alternate personalities turned out to be a traitor, unbeknownst to anyone, including her. Kaminari had sustained brain damage from his quirk but learned to manage it better by using metal to conduct his electricity and avoiding mundane tasks like charging phones. Minoru had not changed at all, leaving everyone puzzled as to how he had not been expelled. Mashireo and Rikido were relatively stable mentally from the start. Mezu had a deep-seated fear related to his mouth due to a past incident, but he had shown some classmates, including Izuku, which helped boost his confidence. Hyuka had come to realize that her music was not a weakness, despite feeling pressure to follow her parents' career paths. Tokoyami had moved past his obsession with darkness and even managed to smile, which was quite a feat given his appearance. Ida had struggled with the fear of not living up to his brother's legacy, but Cece had been there to support him. Tenya was remarkable, and although she teased him occasionally due to her relationship with his brother, she genuinely tried to befriend him. Mina remained her bubbly self, though she had toned down her shipping tendencies after an incident involving her and Aizawa. Finally, Azui, the frog, was an amazing girl with good health, a loving relationship with her 3 siblings, and the potential to be an exceptional hero. Cece felt a sense of pride in her work and her connection to the students. As she finished writing her reports for Nizu, she realized how attached she had grown to these kids. She loved them as if they were her own, and she knew that Aizawa, though he would never admit it, felt the same way. Meanwhile, Izuku found himself in a fierce battle against All for One on the side of a mountain. Punch after punch was exchanged, and as Izuku blocked one of AFO's strikes, he was thrown back, nearing the edge of the cliff. He raised his arm to counterattack, but AFO was quicker, unleashing red lightning that struck Izuku's wrist, severing it. The pain was excruciating, and as Izuku lifted his other arm to retaliate, he was met with another powerful blow that sent him reeling. Fear gripped him as he looked down over the cliff's edge. AFO's chilling voice echoed in his ears, offering an ominous proposition. He wanted Izuku to join him, promising that together they would become the strongest force on the planet. Izuku vehemently rejected the idea, but AFO insisted he could change his mind. The villain's taunts continued, revealing a shocking claim: he was Izuku's father. The revelation sent Izuku into a panic, and in a dramatic moment, he jumped from the cliff, landing in the arms of All Might, who swiftly carried him away. Later, Izuku found contentment living with his aunt, uncle, and little cousin, who were known as the Water Hose Heroes. One day, while sent out to run errands, he returned home to find his world shattered. His house was in ruins, and the sight of his aunt and uncle lifeless, their blood still fresh, filled him with horror. Desperate, he searched for his cousin and found him hiding in a cabinet in the kitchen. In tears, Izuku urged his cousin to leave with him, knowing that the people he had come to see as parents were gone forever. He ran down the street, grief-stricken and alone. Izuku stopped when he noticed a large crowd gathered nearby. As he looked closer, he saw a group of villains surrounding 3 individuals. He gently set his cousin Koda down beside him, and before he could fully comprehend his actions, he dashed into the throng of people. He pushed through the thick slime that was ensnaring a boy, desperately trying to free him but to no avail. Just when hope seemed lost, All Might arrived, ready to save them both. Izuku had been wandering aimlessly, not really paying attention to his surroundings. His cousin was asleep on his back. Despite being young, he was strong for his age, thanks to the rigorous training enforced by his aunt and uncle, who hoped he would become a hero like them. Although he lacked a quirk, his quick thinking allowed him to navigate challenges effectively. Suddenly, he felt someone watching him and looked up to see All Might leaping out from an alleyway, declaring his presence with enthusiasm before coughing and transforming into his smaller form. Izuku was taken aback, stuttering as he tried to introduce himself and inquire about All Might's whereabouts. He was exhausted from the day's events. All Might explained that he would be sending Izuku to one of his former mentors, who would train him to harness a new quirk. Thus began Izuku's journey. He soon found himself in a rundown part of town, knocking on a door that opened to reveal a short man with a cane. The man greeted him warmly, recognizing Izuku as the one Toshiro had mentioned. He invited Izuku inside. Training commenced, and the bond between the cousins and the man deepened. He became a grandfather figure to them. As Izuku learned to control his new quirk, he grew stronger. However, as time passed, Torino's health began to decline. The UA entrance exam was approaching in just 2 weeks. Izuku found himself by Torino's bedside, tears streaming down his face as he faced the reality of losing someone who had become a father figure to him. Surrounded by friends like All Might, they all felt the weight of sorrow when the final beep of the heart monitor echoed through the hospital room. Despite the grief, it was time for the entrance exam. Izuku and Koda were now staying with a man named Shota Aizawa, who had become a stable father figure for them. Izuku entered the school and took the exam, performing exceptionally well. Izuku had a twin sister named Ochako, the heir to the Midoriya family hero agency. With both parents deceased, her uncle managed the agency, even though it rightfully belonged to her. However, she had not yet become a hero. Izuku also learned that his father was none other than All for One, the enemy of heroes everywhere, adding complexity to his family dynamics. As Izuku observed Shoto and Inasa sparring, he felt a mix of frustration and admiration. He wanted to express his excitement about meeting Gang Orca, but he had to maintain his focus. The two boys worked together to assist Orca, and after the exam concluded, Shoto lay on the ground, groaning from the impact of Orca's attack. Izuku approached Gang Orca, excitedly expressing his admiration for the hero and asking for an autograph. Orca, initially confused, soon realized what Izuku was asking for when he pulled out his notebook filled with hero signatures. Impressed by the boy's knowledge of his real name and background, Orca signed the page. Izuku flipped through his collection, showcasing signatures from numerous heroes, including All Might and several lesser-known figures. He marveled at how different countries reacted to quirks, noting that Japan had the strictest regulations due to its powerful quirks, while the United States had a mix of weaker abilities. Izuku dreamed of exploring the world as a hero, envisioning how a hero license could serve as a passport, granting him access to restricted areas and allowing him to travel freely. He was determined to earn his license and train hard to achieve his goals. Finally, he achieved his dream and decided that Canada would be his first destination. Traveling by quirk was a strange yet exhilarating experience, transporting him from Japan to Canada in an instant. Upon arrival, he noticed a city filled with signs promoting acceptance and equality, where everyone was treated fairly regardless of their quirks. It was a refreshing sight, reminiscent of a utopian society. Next, Izuku crossed the border into Michigan, where he was confronted with the stark reality of poverty. He observed how society's perception of weaker quirks affected people's lives, leading to widespread discrimination and suffering. This journey was not just about becoming a hero, it was also about understanding the world and the challenges that came with it. The world had transformed drastically, shifting from a global superpower to a nation often looked down upon, with only a few exceptions like China. This decline had unfolded over several generations, approximately 8 or 9, as the past users of the nation had experienced. The next destination was China, where the situation was similarly dire. People were caught in a cycle of theft and chaos, struggling to survive in a society marked by turmoil. It was a stark contrast to the utopian societies that once thrived, revealing the harsh realities of poverty and despair. The world had indeed become a cruel place. As the narrative unfolded, it became evident that the journey through these troubled lands was not just a physical one but also a reflection on the state of humanity itself. The exploration of these contrasting environments highlighted the struggles faced by individuals in a world that had lost its way. Todoroki had taken over the narrative once again, eager to share his theories about the characters in their world. He was particularly fascinated by the similarities between Stain and Aizawa, suggesting that they could be brothers or even twins. He pointed out their matching body types, the striking red flash in their eyes when they activated their quirks, and the resemblance in their eye shapes. Stain had even modeled his costume after Aizawa's. However, the author interrupted him, expressing that this was not the first time Todoroki had attempted to share his theories with the readers. The author believed that the audience might not be interested in hearing more of these speculations. Disappointed, Todoroki exited the scene, leaving the author to address the readers directly. The author apologized for the interruption and posed a question to the audience, wondering if they would enjoy a recurring segment where Todoroki could interact with other characters to explore different ideas. The author then shifted the focus, reflecting on their early days on Wattpad, admitting that they had been somewhat naive and unaware of the darker themes that could be explored in storytelling. They had since turned on the dark theme for their writing environment. The author expressed a longing to share some of the funniest moments they had encountered on Wattpad, although they noted that many of these gems were not their own creations and were often quite old. As the narrative continued, there was a playful mention of a conversation between the original Izuku and a villainous version of him, which added a humorous touch to the unfolding story. The author concluded with a cheerful invitation for the readers to enjoy the content, promising more engaging moments ahead.